Hello, everyone. I am Julianne Meyer. You are watching Own Your Wellness, and I'm excited about today's guest. He is an amazing soul who is here to change the world. And I had the honor and privilege of meeting him a little while back, and I've been looking forward to this conversation for quite some time. So without further ado, let me introduce you to Sid McNairy. Welcome to our show, Sid.
Hey, and it's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I met you through a sort of networking type event, and I was drawn to you because of how you show up in the world. And there's just this energy about you that it was so compelling. And I would just love for you to share a little bit about who you are and what you do so that other people can get your vibe as well.
Yeah, and born in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and I took a journey to get here, right? Like everybody enters the earth in some way, and then through all the things that come our way, we get shaped and molded into the person we become. And I'd say that the biggest thing that created my journey was sports. I started playing really high level sports at 7 years old. And in 1978, I was taught meditation by my soccer coach. And so that became part of my look at yourself, learn how to meditate throughout the process. And life has been a meditation in so many ways. And so from there, I went on to be a college football coach. And then I taught yoga, and that took me all over the world to 10 countries and 26 states. And speaking and teaching in that way. And now, after going through my spiritual background of being Egyptian and Native American, that has really unfolded with my spirit name, which means he who brings peace. And so everything that I do comes from that, of bringing peace. You said bringing peace to the world, and that's it. Bring peace to the world wherever I am, is the biggest thing I could possibly do in the rest of my life. So that's where it is.
I love that. I think that you've experienced a lot of the world, which also helps with this idea of bringing peace because you're not only looking at it from one perspective, including your unique heritage. That gives you a different sort of a viewpoint than, say, like me, who, I'm Northern European by heritage. So I'm full on American. I've lived in other countries as well, but that's really when my view of the world started to change. And I realized, oh, you mean not everybody thinks like Americans do? Oh, okay. There's other ways of being. Would you say, and this is something that I found kind of interesting about, 1978, your soccer coach is teaching you to meditate. That seems unusual is probably a better way to put it. Do you think that he was ahead of his time, or was that just one of those things that that's just who he was and he brought it to the table?
Well, I think there are obviously people in that world that meditated. Pele, biggest soccer hero probably ever, right? There's
Yeah.
other people like Maradona and all those different people, but Pele was, and that's what he did before every game. And he turned that into and put it forward for his teammates and people that saw him. So that was one vein that I came through, where there's another vein where people just didn't meditate. They went out and they meditated in their own way, but it was different. And so, yes, he was ahead of his time because he was in that vein, but yet it was already there with many other people. Coach was just an amazing person and taught us how to see ourselves, so that everything was about being a better athlete in that sense, and also being a better human being, and helping these young kids become people that, I still lean on the coaches that were in my life, maybe more so than any religious figure in my life, for sure.
I'm really glad that you mentioned that because I think that there's this idea that in order to live your best life and improve ourselves, it has to come from a certain source or it has to look a certain way. And the fact that you're saying, were my teachers, who's to say that the God of your understanding doesn't come through those people anyway?
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. I'd say this often. My God's too big for one religion.
I love that. Oh my gosh. I don't think I've ever heard anybody say that before. My saying has always been, I don't have a problem with religion. I have a problem with people's interpretation. So,
Right, right,
but, if we think about it as like love and peace and, high vibration energy, then what could go wrong with that?
right.
So, you have a huge mission in this world and you're showing up in all these different ways, as an athlete, as a yoga instructor. I know that you're an author. How are you, do you have a plan to help bring this peace?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and the plan starts with where we are. Excuse me, I've got some bird that wants to be on with you. And it starts there, and for me, it starts with all of it, like nature. How am I interacting with the birds and everything that happens in nature? Then it goes to how am I actually being with my fellow human beings right where I am? So when I wake up in the morning, I spend 2 hours in meditation, and then I go forward and I'm meditating through every moment in my life. Like, even as I'm talking to you, I'm watching myself and the thoughts before they come out of my mouth. Like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
do I need to reel that one back in, or is that okay to let go? And so for me, that's the beginning. That's every day is how I can impact everyone. And we've got a huge plan of going and gathering people in many different lands around the world, so that peace can be taught. Because that's the big thing for me right now. Is I have a program called Masterpiece to Unleash Your Masterpiece, which is also a year-long book that someone reads. And right now, the only way they get to the book is to actually go through the program, because then I know people are dripping that through and
Mm-hmm.
becoming the book.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine if 5 billion, we've sold 5 billion copies. There's 5 billion plus copies of the Bible out there. If
Mm-hmm.
everyone truly lived out their practice, there's a bunch of playbooks. There's the Quran, there's the Torah, playbooks to me. That's the sports guy that I am. If everyone lived out the practice of their books, the world would be different right now. So to
Mm-hmm.
me, it's that's the biggest plan, is to help people become whatever book it is that they so choose to follow, and be it in the real time, so everyone connects and moves in that way. And then, you know, there's a plan that we've put in play, and that's for 2028 to run for office. And yet, before that even comes forward, I want to make sure that I'm living and creating what I want people to tap into, which is
Mm-hmm.
peace. That's why we created the curriculum, to move it into schools, to touch people's lives and create that power of peace that allows everybody to keep raising up.
Something that, first of all, that's beautiful. And thank you for sharing. But something that I really want to highlight that I don't know a lot of people will really necessarily catch is this idea that what I'm hearing you say is it's not about selling the book, it's about becoming. And, we can make money a million different ways, but for me, there's nothing more frustrating than having a book and having somebody buy it, but doing nothing with it, not
Right.
being it, not using it, not learning from it. The point is to make that impact, to create that impact. And so what I'm hearing you say is, there's a lot of information out there, but if you don't do anything with it, it's just information.
Yeah. And as people listen, it's like, okay, what's your favorite book? People probably have, we can think of 1,000 different ways to say their favorite book.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't my favorite book, but it's one of the books that I recommend to people. The Four Agreements. Now,
Yeah.
how much, if you have your favorite book, how much can you quote from that favorite book? And if the
Mm-hmm.
answer is zero, then that's where it's like, okay, well then pause and go back and really let it come in. Like if someone says my favorite book is the Bible, it's like, okay, well, how many verses have you read? that you've memorized, like that you put in, like John 1:1, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. You know, I can go through a bunch of different verses. That's because those playbooks landed in me. And
Mm-hmm.
then I take me into the world. The book doesn't walk around. I
Mm-hmm.
take me into the world and impact people. And I think that's such a big concept that actually isn't taught when people hand someone a book. Yeah.
Exactly. I think that is, there's so many different layers of understanding. And are you just on the surface? Are you just, it's going through? I had this teacher. He spent 14 years in a Zen monastery. And before he went there, he was in what he called, what did he call? Oh, a Buddha store. And he found this book and he picked it up and he was drawn to it and he read it and he started reading all these books about meditation and he kept like devouring books about meditation. And it finally dawned on him one day, maybe I should actually meditate.
That's awesome.
But he kept on reading about it and reading about it, wondering why he wasn't having the effects of meditation because he was reading all these books about it. And I think that's, similar to what you're saying is like, you could just keep learning, but what are you doing? Who are you being because of
Yeah.
it?
There's in my Unleash Master Peace program, the playbook to 100% peace. One thing that we talk about in that book is there's understanding. It's like gaining knowledge, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
over top of me. It's not necessarily embodied. Then there's understanding. Like, how do I bring it into me? Which comes from total experience of what's going on. So I
Mm-hmm.
have to experience this knowledge that I put in my head and bring it into my body. And then the final level is to get to a place of overstanding. And overstanding really looks like taking the moment to say, okay, here it is. I learned this when I went blind. And excuse me, can you hear that?
No, I can't.
Oh, sweet. Okay, then I don't have to worry about the fact that it's noisy to me. Uh, so this overstanding looks like, how am I now able to move and be it from a
Mm-hmm.
place that I don't even have to engage in it because I overstand it. I can be with it when it happens. It's almost like a paranormal experience. It's
Mm-hmm.
an out of body type thing. And I leaned into that space of learning for myself when I lost my sight. I went blind, second time in my life that's happened, once at 15 and a year ago now, almost 2 years now. When that came in, I was doing a TV show and I couldn't see. They didn't know. I'm sitting there and I asked my wife, hey, just make sure that the room's set up this way. And I'll know when I ask people who they are, I'll know where I need to look by what they say, right? And who I'm talking to. And then about an hour in, somehow I was seeing the whole thing from up here. Like I was talking
Wow.
and interacting, but I was seeing outside of my two eyes that weren't working.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there is that level of overstanding. I've experienced it. Now, how can I get there in my day to day life is a whole nother conversation.
That is a huge topic, and a lot of people are probably going, what in the world is he even referring to? And as somebody who I watched a documentary, I don't even remember the name of it. They were blind people, literally blind, and they same idea. They knew exactly where everything was, and they could see without seeing with their eyes. And it was so. I mean, that is a real thing that not just you can experience. I'm saying this for the audience so that they understand it's not like a chosen one type of thing. It's something we can all learn or create for ourselves. So I love that. Did you ever figure out why you were blind? Or
Yeah, I did. I learned that I was allergic to sugar.
oh, wow.
Yeah, I like my whole life I couldn't grasp why Now, when I was an athlete and I'm running it out of my body
Mm-hmm.
constantly, right? So it didn't really matter what. Like I ate McDonald's pre-practice when I was in college, right? It didn't really matter what I was putting in. I just needed fuel to burn.
Mm-hmm.
Then, as I got older, even though I was surfing every day, it was it was a different exercise than moving something out of my body. And
Mm-hmm.
so, at one point, my blood sugar hit 750.
Oh,
And
wow.
and a normal blood sugar level is like 100 or below.
Mm-hmm.
And so when it hit that, they began to, oh, it must be diabetes, it must be this, that, or the other. And I said, no, I'm gonna figure it out. And I then when I came back to it and realized the smallest amount of processed sugar, so created sugar, like I eat a ton of apples, they don't
Mm-hmm.
bother me at all. But yet, as a diabetic, they say you would never eat apples, but I eat probably 4 apples a day. So once I realized that that was it, I was able to. I mean, I in the process I've lost 75 pounds, and it wasn't, and no one ever thought I needed to lose weight, but there was a bloating from the sugar, and so that was it. The sugar got so big in my vessels of my eyes. Your eye vessels are really small
Uh-huh.
that it couldn't pass, so it eventually got in there and just got stuck in my eyes. Uh, so I had to do a lot of different things to get that to move through. And eventually, after I got so much out from my own personal walk, I went in and saw a doctor, and he went in and cut it out, and now I see great. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. And I love this idea. Well, two things. One is you didn't become a diagnosis. And two, you listen to yourself and your body first. Because yes, there are doctors out there, and I'm never ever going to put down a doctor. I won't, because I respect the profession. They also don't live in your skin. They also don't live. Nobody's going to be the expert of you like you if you allow yourself to be.
Yeah, I will say that the doctor I saw, now my dad always said this. He works at the National Institute of Health. If I send you to a surgeon, how's the surgeon going to think they can shift it? Surgery. If I send
Mm-hmm.
you to a dietitian, they're going to use nutrition because that
Mm-hmm.
you're going to use what you know. So
Uh-huh.
the doctor that I first went to, I was actually just getting my eyes checked thinking I needed glasses, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
it was fading, and they couldn't even get the machine to read through my eye lens. And
Wow.
so their recommendation was surgery. That's what they do, right? And it was great because eventually I said, okay, I've healed this. Can you clear it out? So surgery was a great thing for me. Then when I was getting prepped for the first surgery, where I was just choosing if I would do it or not, and then I
Mm-hmm.
didn't have surgery for another 7 months. But I went to a doctor to get me cleared to be in the surgery. Long story short, later I learned that he was a diabetic, so he prescribed everything about diabetes. And then I said, look, at one point he said, I'm going to give you these insulin and all this stuff. And I said, Doc, I'm not going to take it. And when I finish, when I beat this and I come back, will you join me? Because I promise
Ooh.
you I'm going to beat this. And so I went back, and they brought all these doctors. Look, this guy did this on his own. Look at his levels. Everything's good. He's good. And I said, all right, Doc, it's time. Now you get to check in on my program. And he's like, no, I'm okay, man. I'm good just taking the medicine. I get to eat whatever I want that way. And it's like, okay, if you want that. But again, someone who has experienced their healing in whatever way, that is
Mm-hmm.
what they're going to recommend, right? Like I've just had peace in my life so much
Mm-hmm.
that I know what it looks like to go to peace as opposed to go to the magic pill. There's no magic pill in anything.
I love that. Oh, yes, you're speaking my language. We do need to go to a commercial break, but when we come back, we're going to talk about your book, and we're also going to talk more about the idea of peace and what that actually means. So we will be back in just a moment. Welcome back, everyone. If you're just joining us now, I'm Julianne Meyer. You're watching Own Your Wellness, and today's amazing guest is Sid McNairy. Let's bring him back. Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you.
So before we went to the commercial break, we were talking about this idea of peace, but even before that, we were talking about your coaching program and that you have a book. And I'd love to talk a little bit more about that in particular, because I know there's people out there who are already looking at your website, already finding you on social media. But I'd love for, everybody to have hear it from you is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go with this book because I have 6 books that are out there, and and then I have another book that coming. We'll have to come back and talk about that one at the time. But the book I really recommend for people to get started with is The Secret Weapon. And the secret weapon, I'm the secret weapon for many people in their life until they become their own secret weapon, you know? And so that's such a big part of it for me because we give tools for people to learn. Like a major tool that we go to over and over in the book is stop, listen, and feel. And
Mm,
it's a great one for someone to pick up in this moment. And what it looks like is if you're in a hole of any sort, it could be health, it can be something with your job, it can be relationship with a spouse or your children. When you're in a hole, the first thing to do is stop digging. That's the number one way to get out of the hole. Stop taking the hole deeper and deeper and deeper. So whenever anything comes up in my mind now, because I've practiced it so much, stop, listen, and feel happens almost instantaneous. People don't even realize, wait a minute, why sit at peace in this moment? My yoga studio was on fire once, and they're like, why is Sid okay with this and moving everybody? Because I knew, okay, we got a fire in the back. Stop, everybody. No need to panic. Get your
Mhm.
stuff. Head outside. We'll be fine. Everybody got out easy and all those different things, and we kept going. So, number one thing, stop. And then listen. Listen to what's happening in here in our thoughts because our
Mhm.
thoughts are creating programs that are running and creating what's coming next in our life. So, stop, listen. Once I know where I want to go, feel my way into that.
Mm.
So that's what it is. Stop, listen, and feel. So many other things that come up in The Secret Weapon, yet that's the book that I'd love for people to pick up and check out.
I love that. I I think about this idea of feeling, and I'm somebody that has experienced a lot of trauma and a lot of, it's not like it's unusual. A lot of people do. And it took me a really long time to stop and look. But the feeling part was the one thing I was trying to avoid at all costs. And as soon as I leaned into that part, oh my goodness, it was such a game changer. It was, even if it was uncomfortable, it made it so much easier to get through it. And people don't necessarily realize that you have to feel.
Well, I mean, when something happens in someone's life, you now have a compass if you
Hmm.
listen to it, right? Let's say you touch the hot fire and you get burned. Well, now you know when you get too close, you start to feel the heat, you stop. There's your
Hmm.
compass. It tells you, don't touch the hot fire, you're going to get burned again. Like it's easy. Every person can experience that. Children, doesn't matter. Fortunately for us, children think something's hotter than it really is, so they learn it before it becomes too hot of something to touch. So when I've gone through something in my life that says, "Oh, this is hot," I now have a compass that says, "Okay, feel it. Okay, go somewhere else. That's not the place to go." If I
Hmm.
want peace and I know what that feels like, and I hit the hot fire, that's not it. Oh, there's no fire over here. That's peace. I'm going there. You know,
Hmm.
and that becomes that essence of stop, listen, and feel.
I love that. We've been talking about peace, and you use that word in a more profound way than most people think of it. And I'd love to hear what your definition of peace is, because I think that you can expand minds by sharing that.
Sure. Peace is in Sudanese. Peace is the foundation that gives access to love. And what that means is, okay, here's peace is my foundation. We've got what's under peace. That's the illusion.
Mm-hmm.
Is underneath that. When I hit peace, I now have access to everything. Love is everything. So anything that's not love is actually the illusion. And so
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't matter what it is, there is an aspect of it that is love. Like someone can say, well, somebody, I've went through the worst thing. Well, now you know. That was love getting you to the knowing, right? So it's important for people to get that. And if someone were to say, no, it's not. Well, do you actually experience love when you don't have peace in your life? And yes, love still exists, but the illusion says it's not there.
Mm-hmm.
Love still exists because the trees are still moving oxygen and all these different things. Yet, how many humans are aware of it when there is no peace? Like you
Mm-hmm.
turn to all the major things that are going on in the world that are involving extra people. How much of them are not experiencing peace and can't see any love in those experiences? We bring peace, we start to help people experience love. It changes the dynamic of everything we're in.
Wow. Yes, yes. Because as we're talking, I was thinking everybody's probably wondering why choose peace versus love. But I understand where you're coming from. And I also something that maybe I picked this up, and this isn't even what you were saying, but this idea that sometimes love will get, like, you might experience uncomfortable things, but it's getting you, it is actually love. Like, to me, I remember one time I was working at a place, and my boss had to fire one of her best friends, and he deserved it. It was something he needed to be fired for. And she was heartbroken about this whole experience. And I said to her, tough love is still love. It's,
Yes, it is.
it really got him where he needed to go, even though it was uncomfortable in that moment. It was the most loving thing to happen for him. So I
Yeah,
like
it
that.
does.
I love that so much. And something else I want to highlight too is this idea of you being the secret weapon until they can be the secret weapon themselves. For me, I don't want to work with anybody who I have to work with for my entire life. I want to be able to choose to work with them, but not need it. Like, I want me to be the person that can handle myself, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, to have a goal of leaving the world at peace, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's my goal. Like that's my end game, which means, all right, we need to speed up because who knows how much time I got, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's go, people. And I know that early on in my career, I thought I just help this person lean on me, lean on me, lean on me. It got a lot really heavy. Now,
Mm-hmm.
the bigger I play this game of helping people get to peace, if I'm not teaching them, they're going to have to depend on me, and then that becomes too heavy for me to carry. And so for me, that's kind of it. You know, that old Chinese proverb: "Give a man a fish, they eat for a day. Teach a man a fish, they'll eat for a lifetime." Like
Yes.
I'm teaching people to fish in that sense of teaching people to find peace for themselves so that now not only like somebody in Timbuktu, I can reach them by this person now has this person and Sid doesn't have to do it. Peace is possible, but we all have to do the work.
Exactly. I always say we don't do life alone, but we have to do it ourselves. And it's, I mean, what if something happened to you, God forbid, in 5 minutes from now? Then what would all those other people that were relying on you, what about them? So I love this idea of teaching people how to find it for themselves and live it for themselves versus, like you said, and that's the thing too, you're having to put all their burdens on you. Now that does get heavy when you're carrying everybody's things.
Yes.
So for those that are watching and they might not have caught this, but you're headed into the political world, And a lot of people, I think, might sit there and think, peace and politics. How do those two things go together? Because most people don't think of it as an avenue to change the world in that respect. What makes you want to choose that as a vehicle for creating peace?
Well, I've always been this person that jumps into the biggest impact place.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I was at Purdue, um, I felt like, all right, I have all these worlds and it's not all together. Like I had sports, I had my friends, I had school, and they weren't together.
Mm-hmm.
They so at one point one of my friends came and said, "Hey, can we go? Let's go check out what this fraternity stuff's like." So I went. Just happened to a lot of the guys on my dorm floor were white, so they took me to all these white fraternities. My dad was a Kappa, my dad was a Alpha, my uncle was a Kappa, so I already knew what that was like. And next thing I know, people are asking me if I'll be the first black guy to integrate all of the Greek system. Now, in order to integrate the Greek system that is now different since that moment, I had to get in it.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lot of people complaining and upset about politics, and we are leading people in my opinion, in many ways on every side of this coin. We are leading people away from peace in their life.
Mm-hmm.
So where do I go to impact it? Let's go into politics. Let's go into where we can instantly make the biggest shift. I have a friend who goes and rescues children from sex trafficking. Like that movie was his team. Right?
Wow.
And because of that, their leader said, if we can shift one of the traffickers, we impact hundreds of kids. If
Mm-hmm.
we rescue one kid, we got one person. So
Yeah.
that's where it is for me. Like going into politics at this point where we are not producing, we're producing something other than peace in the world through many choices that are happening in politics. I am choosing to say I'm in, and I want to affect it. The first step for me looks like becoming the ambassador of peace for the world, and then let everybody else choose for me to be their president.
I think that's amazing. And in order to do that, you do have to have peace because you are seriously stepping into the fire. So, but it's kind of like that saying of when you squeeze an orange, what comes out? Orange juice. So, not milk, not
Right,
water,
right.
orange juice. So, I like that idea of sort of just coming from the top and working down. Like you said, it's kind of like the starfish story. You're throwing one starfish in at a time. And we're not saying that isn't wonderful for that starfish, but if you could somehow go from the top and create that change, it's a ripple effect.
Yes. Yes.
And, for me, and I'm curious what your opinion is on this. I tend to feel like we're just sort of doing what we've always done. And it's just parts of it are getting amplified more, but the more negative side of things versus the positive, and just seems to be like, okay, I'm getting more attention. I'm getting more this if I act in this way versus what is actually really best for the world.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
I think if I go back to the fire concept, touch the fire, you get burned, you stop
Mm-hmm.
touching the fire. If I could pick up a burning log and just pick it up and nothing happened, would the burning log matter?
Yeah.
No, not in that sense. And so I think the same thing is happening here. Like some people may look at it as, why are we still doing? Well, we haven't gotten burned. Not enough.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in my opinion, I have, right? I I can look back in history, but I don't remember history. I can talk to my dad who remembers the need of hiding underneath their desk in case the bombs drop, right?
Mm-hmm.
They can remember that. So they don't want to go back to that. But this new generation, myself included, if I haven't got the lesson, we're gonna move until I get the lesson. So it's kind of like that. I don't think we're moving in that. There are some people. I mean, a person once told me 90% of the people in the world are good people. 10% of them are, you need to stay away. The problem with the 90% of the people is 10% of their actions are things we want to stay away from. And we leave them in the 10% of their actions. But yet 90% of their actions are good actions. So now, and there is no real good or bad, it's all leading to something good.
Mm-hmm.
Yet I think in that sense, it's like, okay, now let's look at this wholeheartedly. We, at some point, we are going to choose somebody to lead us that actually is where we want to go.
Mm.
Like that seems like rocket science, not really, but it seems like it in our choices of how we're doing. If someone doesn't have peace in their life, I'm not asking them to lead me, not at all, because it's like I already know that that's not going to be real access to love when the time comes.
Yeah.
So, and the time, I want people to know this about peace. Peace leads to love, which is everything. So someone who needs to push the envelope and maybe protect people, that's love. And then sometimes you may not need to push the envelope and you need to pull back. That's also love. It's all love. We've got to be appropriate of where we go from here.
I like that. And it all comes back down to like the intention and where are you coming from while you're, having these actions and making these moves. So I really appreciate what you're saying. We do need to go to another commercial break. When we come back, we're going to continue the conversation about peace and maybe like touch a little bit more about ways to create that within ourselves. So we'll be back in just a moment. Welcome back, everyone. If you're just joining us now, I'm Julianne Meyer. You're watching On Your Wellness, and today's amazing guest is Sid McNairy. Let's bring him back. Welcome back, sir. So happy to have you here.
Yes, this has been awesome.
So during the commercial break, I had this question just sort of drop into my consciousness, and I feel the need to ask it. And it has to do with, I'm going to use meditation as an example of what it is. And, when we start to listen to that inner guidance, that voice within us that tells us what's best for us and what to do, I know for me, I sometimes experience this resistance to do the thing that I know is exactly what I need. And let's say meditation, for example. For me, I've resisted that forever. And, I've done it and I'll start and I'll stop. But I already know that that is the thing that will change everything for me, the thing that I need the most. And yet I still, doesn't mean I don't, not do it, but I still have this resistance. What do you think that is?
Well, I will say what it has been in my own life, because I had those moments, right? Like it was I had the discipline to go out on Fridays and hang out with my friends. I had the I had the discipline to study enough to get a degree.
Mm-hmm.
It comes down to discipline.
Hmm.
Like the discipline to sit down and meditate as soon as I wake up, which is typically between 4 a.m. and 5 a.m., and sit down and do it. I just, now there's plenty of times that I'm like, man, I stayed up too late watching that movie or doing whatever, and I don't want to get up. I have to have the discipline to do it. So, and when I look at discipline, I am a disciple of peace. I go back to peace all the time.
Mm-hmm.
That's my discipleship. It just so happens that they used to call Jesus the Prince of Peace. Buddha, everyone refers to him as peace. Peace, 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 peace has been part of my life. I am a disciple of peace. So that is my discipline. Whatever's going to get me closer to that, I'm going to lean into. Meditation just happens to be one of those things.
I love that. I think that that is such a wonderful way to put it. And, for me, discipline shows up like I stop taking my temperature before I do things. I just do it. And because it's like brushing my teeth. I don't sit there and him and ha. Whether or not I feel like it, it doesn't really matter. I'm still going to brush my teeth. That's just what I do.
Mm-hmm.
I
I
like
mean,
to
you
have my
created that habit.
Exactly. And to
Yeah.
me, it's just, it's something I do. Or, for some people, it's going to the gym or meditation or whatever it is, ultimately. I love that. I like thinking about it that way because if you could just sort of take out the whether you feel like it or not part, that's when the discipline comes in. It makes a huge difference in how you show up for yourself and in turn for the world. Now, speaking of showing up for people, and you already show up for people in a major way, and it's going to be even bigger. What would you say to those people who feel like their contribution isn't necessarily as large? So what's the point?
Well, I'll say that we're all creating our reality. Always. Like I only see you as this amazing person. I love all the commercials that we just watched. Like literally, I was like, wow, she's this is so cool. She's got these people on here. And what I'll say about that as I create my space, knowing that I am whatever I'm looking at, I'm calling it what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm looking at something and I'm saying there's no hope, that no hope is inside of me.
Mm-hmm.
To find it inside. Whatever it is on the outside, if you don't feel there's a way forward, all right, find the way forward. It starts in here because you're seeing it the way you see it. And that kind of runs it back to me. And I'm going to go with two things. One is the action or our work and practice is called create. I'll get into that in a second. Yet in the secret weapon, I talk about how there's thought. I think about something, it becomes my action. If I
Mm-hmm.
think about moving my hand, I have to think about it. My hand starts moving. It didn't just start moving. There's a thought that goes to every action. Every action leads to something becoming your habit. If you do it over and over again, just like we talked about brushing your teeth, it becomes your habit. As
Mm-hmm.
that habit keeps going, people see my habits, they think of me, and my character is developed in that person's eyes because they see it all the time. And then after someone has put me in the character, that becomes my destiny. So if I go back to here's the thought, so it becomes my action becomes my habit becomes my character becomes my destiny. If I want my destination to be different, start with the thought. That's
Mm-hmm.
that's a huge thing. And then when it comes to you asked before we broke, how does someone create peace within? That's our
Mm-hmm.
practice is to create. centering, which looks like getting yourself centered, which often looks like meditation, research. If you know there's something you're looking for, you're going to have to do some work to figure out what is it, how do I get there? Research it, dive into it, understand it, elevate from that place. Wherever you are, be willing to elevate. How do you get to the next step? Then sometimes we'll tell people, all right, that's a 15-minute practice in itself. 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes. Do that in the morning. Then come back with awakening. You're paying attention to what are you aware of that you didn't know. Now put that in. Keep it going if it's leading you where you want to go. Then training, which for me looks like training. Truly, all right, I got to move my body, whatever that looks like. It could be yoga. It could be walking on the beach. It could be, these are all things that I do. It could be riding a bike. It can be surfing. What is your training that gets in the practice of how you're bringing those things in? And then the last part is experience, and how do you create the experience that ultimately leads to the next day?
Beautiful. You know, I don't know. I just feel compelled to share this, but my birthday's coming up in April. So I'll be 46. And I've been talking about doing an Olympic triathlon for, I don't know, 15 years probably. And I'm finally doing one on April 28th. So,
Wow. Good work.
do I really, it just became one of those things where I talked about it for so long. I want to be the person who does what I say I'm going to do. And so therefore, I'm doing it, whether or not I'm
Yeah.
ready. I'm doing it.
I love that. I really do. I mean, that's why I love working with athletes, ex-athletes,
Mhm.
because athletes typically know, okay, there's something I'm chasing. I'm going to go get it, right?
Mhm.
And the ones that I put 23 guys in the NFL, the ones that were willing to go get it until they got there, they got there,
Mhm.
and I think that's such a powerful thing for you. And I look forward to hearing about it. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you. One of the things I learned a long time ago was if there's anything I want to become or achieve in my life, I should have an equal physical goal to match it. So if it's like I want to make $1 billion, then I better have $1 billion goal that's physical, because it's who you become while you're getting there that will get you there, no matter what it is. So I like this idea of just not quitting, moving
Yes.
forward.
Yeah.
So
Just keep going.
yeah, just keep going. I know a lot of people are afraid of the fail, but they don't really realize that that's part of the way there. And it's not really failing as long as you're moving forward. So I don't
Yes.
know. I don't know.
Yeah.
We're running a little low on time, and I want to make sure that we have, if there's anything that you want to share that's powerful that you haven't had the opportunity to share yet, because I know you have a lot of wisdom. I'd love for to give you the opportunity now. We have about 3 minutes.
Awesome. I mean, well, I'll say this because peace has been the topic. It usually is wherever I go.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll ask anyone that's listening, have you committed to peace in your own life?
Mm.
Because you are the person that will make a difference in everybody else's peace. And if you haven't, just make the commitment right now as you listen to this. You can do it however it looks for you. And as you make that commitment, take the time to say, okay, am I holding peace for 24 hours? And if
Mm-hmm.
you make it 24 hours, then eventually when you've made it, go to a week. And if you make it a week, go to a month. If you make it a month, go to a year, and then make it your life. That's the easiest way for us to get peace on earth. All we have to do is everybody needs to make the commitment and walk to it.
I love that. I want to highlight too is it's a practice. You're not, it's not always going to be the easiest thing. And it does take practice and even to just change the way our brain works, because, we're so used to automatically reacting to certain things that to take that pause and be that person, the observer, to look and see, like you mentioned early on, you're looking at your thoughts before you say them and deciding whether or not you should share that. I think that we can all get to that point with practice. Would you say that's accurate?
Oh, for sure. This isn't a perfect. It's a practice. Life is a practice. Really, to me, life is a game, and I'm practicing at it every day. You know, and
Yeah.
the more I practice, we used to say in football, practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect.
Ooh.
Until we get to the perfect practice, that's when it'll be perfect in our eyes. But it already is perfect. You know, everybody that's listening, everything about you is perfect. Everything you experience was perfect, perfectly designed for you to be who you are today. There is absolutely this idea that being human is imperfect. Not true. It was perfected when we were created.
I
And
like
so it's exactly the way it's meant to be. We just have to choose to get the lessons along the way.
Beautiful. The thing I always tell myself is all is in divine order. And as soon as I realize and remember that, I can relax into the moment, even if it's not what I want it to be or look like. It's easier for me. So I just want to say thank you. Can you mention your book one more time for us, please?
Yes, The
The
Secret
one.
Weapon,
The
and
one.
they can pick it up on Amazon. They can write me if they want at programs at sidmcnairy.com, and we'll figure out how to get it signed and get it to you. And you can also find me on every
Social media.
social media out there, Sid McNairy, and yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. I have been looking forward to this conversation. As I mentioned in the beginning, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you here today. I would love to have you back again so we can talk about your next book. So if you're open, I'd love to have that.
Oh, absolutely. This has been one of the best interviews I've ever been on, and
Oh, I'm so
and
glad.
uh, so thank you so much for your time and your dedication to. I mean, you're touching lives. That's it. Like, and
That's
that,
what it's about.
regardless of all the other stuff that happens, you are touching lives, and I appreciate you. So thank you for being you in the world.
Thank you. And everyone, that is all the time that we have for today. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we will see you again very soon.